It's difficult for me to describe Abigaila's character without first beginning by saying that she is a woman in pain. She is a woman who feels marginalized by her family, by the person that she has decided that she wants to be with, her love, the tenor, who is in love with her sister, or her half-sister. And she feels that basically in all of the games of life, she always loses. And she also, strangely, at the same time, has a very high opinion of herself. And so it makes her angry because she knows that she's capable, that she's intelligent, that she could do what she wants to do if people would just listen to her, pay attention to her, love her, accept her as worthy. And of course, there are all of these specific things, that she's a slave, that she's part, but for me, the most important thing, especially when you're dealing with new productions which perhaps veer away from the original bones of the story and we move to a more modern interpretation, the most important thing is that she is a marginalized person, someone who feels not connected to her society, to the people around her. And as an American, especially the day after another horrible shooting in America, I would say that that kind of marginalization that causes people to act out in rage in our world now, terrorists, people that do shootings, people that do horrible things to each other, we often find that they have been thrown to the side of whatever group they're trying to be a part of, and that it causes them to act out in horrible, horrible ways. And I think that that's pretty much the character of Abigail, someone who does bad things to get people to pay attention to her because she can't get anybody else, get them to pay attention to her otherwise. Well, I think the way that Verdi wrote it, the libretto, at her very death, at the last 2-3 pages of the opera, she seems to ask for forgiveness. She does ask for forgiveness, but it's not clear, at least in the words on the page, how deep that forgiveness that she's asking for is. I'm not sure. I mean, you know, in some ways, we as the audience, we as the experience, we who experience this story are saved from having to really determine the emotional fate of Abigail because she doesn't make it. So she is someone, I think, depending on the interpretation of, she could either have had a 180-degree change of viewpoint, or she can just be afraid at the end of her life, and out of that fear softened a little bit. And I don't know which it is. I think I've played both. It depends on the production I'm in and what the alchemy between the performers in any given production brings me to. I mean, of course, you know, I love to believe in redemption. I love to believe that people can change and that they can discover new ways to think about their place in the world, because it's that hope that keeps us all going. But of course, in Abigail's case, it's too late. She dies anyway. So I don't know. I don't know. It's a good question. I end up singing a lot of really nasty women. I sing Lady Macbeth, I sing Abigail, of course, I sing Norma, who I think, in respect with Nabucco, the character of Norma does actually go through a pretty extreme change in a way that I don't see that as much in Abigail. But I think that in some ways it's cathartic to explore rage. And I have discovered in exploring rage that rage almost always comes from pain. And pain is something that everyone can relate to. I mean, we've all had difficult things that we've lived through, and we've all been rejected. We've all had things not worked out the way we wanted. And so basically my job is to take a relatively small experience in my life personally and that emotion and blow it up and create for myself an emotional reference so that I can find something that is true and real that will lead me to what I think Abigaille might be thinking and feeling. It's true, I would never behave like Abigaille, but it's also true that I've been very fortunate in my life never to have the kind of challenges that she's had. And I think, you know, I do believe that we are all sort of, we're dependent on the luck that brings us into this world. And I've been very lucky, and Abigaille wasn't lucky at all. And so I have a certain amount of respect and empathy for her as a character. And I think that helps me play her. I always try to find a way to play her without making her into a supervillain. Mm-hmm. Because I think it's much more interesting if she's just a really misguided woman. No, it's true. But it's also, I mean, I think there are all different ways to be unlucky. I mean, I personally think that in this case, it's just as, I mean, I don't think we need to quantify it, but it's difficult for her being in a situation where she is not, where she's allowed certain benefits of a class that she is constantly reminded that she doesn't belong to. That's difficult. It would also be difficult if she were not offered any benefits, but if she was around people that, if she had been around people that accepted her. I mean, the challenges are different, but I think that they are equally important and heavy. I do think that she is just trying. She's trying to find a way to please her father. And I think that that is something that we see over and over again in Verdi's operas. This relationship with father and daughter. She wants, at the end, I think she destroys him or tries to destroy him to prove that she is his, that she belongs to him because she is like him. And so they sort of implode, the both of them, because they can't find an effective way to relate to one another when they are actually very much alike. And I think that's also something that parents and children can relate to. Often in a family dynamic, it's the kids that are the most like you that give you the most stress. And I think that that's absolutely true. I think Finena is Nabucco's favorite, not just because she is from a favored wife, but also because she is not like Nabucco. She's sweet, and she's hopeful, and she's not warmongering, and she's not interested in power particularly. And so it's easy to love her. Abigaille is more like Nabucco. They have a lot more in common. And I think that Verdi also wants us to come to that conclusion because the way he writes the characters, especially in the large ensembles, Nabucco and Abigaille often have similar or parallel vocal structures when the rest of the chorus and the other soloists are doing something completely different. And I think that's his way, Verdi's way of letting us know that whether we like it or not, Nabucco and Abigaille are inextricably aligned, and there's nothing to be done about it. It's beyond reason. It's just DNA.